Hi guys, we're carrying on with our Wizard of Once by Cressida Cowell, and yesterday we left Wish, Zara and Bodkin in the Iron Warrior fort. Zara had been bound in chains, Wish was trapped in the arms of a warrior, and then Wish's mother turned up, Queen Sycorax. Chapter 13, The Questioning of Queens. At the entrance of Queen Sycorax, the warriors bowed so low their foreheads nearly hit the floor. Sycorax was scary. But then she was a very great queen, and as Wish said, maybe great queens have to be scary. There were those who said that a woman was too weak to rule a tribe of invading iron warriors, but they said it very, very quietly, just in case Queen Sycorax should hear them. She was lovely, all right, if by lovely you mean pretty. Hair like a golden waterfall, slim as a candle, 6 feet tall and most of it muscle. All of the sort of stuff that comes in handy if you're going to be a warrior queen and you like to make an entrance. Whether her character was lovely, well, that's an entirely different question, and we'll have to see about that. She was dressed in white with a single black pearl hanging from one ear. Queen Sycorax talked very, very softly in a golden pear drop of a voice that was as mild as the bite of an adder. She did not have to speak loudly, that lovely Queen Sycorax, for everyone leaned in to listen, and you could hear a pin drop in the terrified silence that followed her around like a sweeping cloak. Even Zar stopped his cursing for a moment. "So," said Queen Sycorax in that quiet, gentle voice, as sweetly pure as the stab of an icicle, "where is this wizard attack that has so rudely awoken me before daybreak?" Petrified, the chief god stepped forward and indicated Zar, the sprites and the snowcats with a sweep of his armoured hand. "We have contained the attack, your majesty," said the chief god. "Yes," said Queen Sycorax, surveying the wizard attack. "It's not a very large attack, is it, to warrant waking a queen so early in the morning? I thought I was supposed to have the finest warrior sentries in the warrior world, and yet one small wizard boy can still enter my fort undetected." "Step forward the sentries who let the wizard attack happen," roared the chief guard. The sentries stepped forward smartly. "The sentries on watch should be locked in dungeon 308, and as the officer in charge of the time, chief guard, I hold you responsible. So you can lock yourself in too, and post the keys back through the bars," said Queen Sycorax. "I have no need for failures in this fort." "Yes, your majesty," bowed the chief guard, and he and the sentries marched off to lock themselves in dungeon 308. "Who captured the wizard and his magic companions in the first place?" "Your daughter," said another guard, indicating Wish. Queen Sycorax raised an eyebrow. "Really?" said Queen Sycorax in surprise. "How unusually warrior-like of her." Next she said, "Unchain the prisoner." "But your majesty, is that wise?" said the deputy to the chief guard. "He is a wizard after all." Queen Sycorax gave him a look. The deputy undid Zar's chains. The warriors and the citizens of the fort who had arrived on the scene took a step back, for wizards were known to be extremely dangerous. Queen Sycorax glided round Zar, looking him over as if he were an unusual type of insect that she was seeing for the first time. "Who are you, and what are you doing in my fort?" "I am Zar, son of Encanzo, the great king enchanter," said Zar proudly. "And the wild woods belong to us wizards, not you stupid, magicless, heartless invaders." Queen Sycorax sighed. "The ignorance of these poor wizards," she said. "We are civilization. We are progress. Look at us. Look at our weapons, our clothes, our tapestries, our furniture. You wizards, in comparison, are barely better than animals." The fort was, indeed, very dazzlingly decked out, and Queen Sycorax had a thing about tidiness. So every piece of armour and sword was polished until it shone like silver. Even the giant heads hanging in the main hall, dead as doornails though they were, had their beards brushed daily. So the whole effect was pretty spectacular, and Zar was secretly rather impressed by the sophistication of warrior weaponry and the splendidness of their clothes and fort. So this stopped him a moment. Caliburn said warningly, "Warrior stuff is dangerous. It seduces you." "Why do you need these warrior knickknacks?" hissed Ariel, "when you have the moon to dance under and a violin to sing the tune? Are they worth your freedom, your wandering spirits?" "That's right," shouted Tsar. "You warriors have come here and stolen our forest, and one day, when I grow up to be the leader of my tribe, I promise I am going to kill the lot of you." Queen Sycorax looked at him intently. "Will you now?" she said. "Well, this is interesting. I could make sure that you never grow up, couldn't I? Or Incanzo might be willing to pay to have his son returned. Or we could hold on to you in exchange for his good conduct." Tsar looked the Queen straight in the eye. The thing about Tsar was he didn't scare easily. "You, Queen Sycorax, are the softest, pitiless warrior queen I have ever seen," said Tsar. Sycorax flinched. The entire courtyard took an intake of breath. Queen Sycorax's eyes sharpened to splinters. "What did you say?" "Evil destroyer of the forest," shouted Tsar. "May you be ground by the teeth of a Rogerbreath into teeny little pieces of dust much smaller than the fleas of an itch sprite." "Be polite, Tsar," said Caliburn in an agonised fashion. "Wickedness on legs, pointy ears, hair like a bear's bottom, nose like a pointy potato." Once Tsar started cursing, he really put his heart and soul into it. It had been a difficult day, what with being humiliated by Luther and told off by his father, and he put all the fear and the fury into a long, elaborate cursing of Sycorax, Queen of the Warriors. "Oh, Tsar," moaned Caliburn, his wings over his eyes. "This time you're asking to get yourself killed. You really are." "You can curse all you like, Tsar, son of Incanzo," whispered Queen Sycorax, her eyes like flinty arrows. "But it may not get you what you want. What do you want, by the way?" Tsar suddenly remembered what he wanted. He wanted to save Squeezes. He stopped mid-curse, panting. "I demand that you put my sprite and my hand on the stone that takes away magic, as soon as you can," said Tsar. Sycorax looked at him in astonishment. She was used to prisoners who begged and prayed and beseeched and pleaded that they should never be taken to the terrible stone. "Please, please, please, Queen Sycorax, we will do whatever you want, but do not take us to the stone that takes away magic." Not prisoners who demanded to be led there immediately, while at the same time insulting her. This wizard might be full of trickery, but Sycorax was used to trickery. She was tricky herself. "Take me to the stone," said Tsar, "as quickly as your stupid, lumping great warriors can move in those iron-full suits of theirs. This is an emergency." And then he reached into his breast pocket, and his hands were shaking as he unwrapped Squeezes. Oh, this was terrible. With a lurch of his heart, Tsar saw that Squeezes was looking worse than ever. He was green as emerald, trembling all over as if he had the flu, drifting in and out of consciousness, rigid one moment, fever-racked the next. For a second, the hairy fairy's glazed, confused eyes focused as if he knew where he was, and he held up his feverish, shaking little arms in entreaty to Tsar and the other big people. "Help me," whispered Squeezes. "Help me." Tsar turned to Queen Sycorax. "I want to save my sprite," said Tsar despairingly. Queen Sycorax started as she looked at Squeezes. "What happened?" said Queen Sycorax grimly. "To your sprite?" "He got witch blood on him," said Tsar. The warrior soldiers and citizens gave a great gasp of horror and stood back even further from the wizard boy. Queen Sycorax was a very great warrior queen, so she would never show fear, but her face turned to a diamond stiffness. "A witch, you say?" said Queen Sycorax. "But witches are extinct," said the deputy to the chief guard. "Liar!" called a warrior from the crowd. "All wizards are liars." "I saw the witch dead myself," said Tsar. "It was definitely a witch, and it gave me this." Tsar held up his palm to show the green stain in the middle of it. "A witch stain," cried the crowd, and they stepped back even further. Cowards, snapped Queen Sycorax. According to legend, witch's blood is only dangerous if it mixes with your blood. Show me that hand of yours, boy. Tsar put his hand out again. Queen Sycorax stared at the green mark. She took a good look at Squeezes too, taking the little bundle he was wrapped in out of Tsar's hands and looking at him from all angles. And then she turned to the crowd. It is as I suspected, said Queen Sycorax, holding up the poor poisoned sprite so that everyone could see him. And then she lifted her gentle voice to one of ringing hardness. Witches are not extinct, and they have returned to the forest. The crowd recoiled in horror. I have been right to arm us as I have done, cried Sycorax. Right to increase our sentries, add to our watchtowers. To Tsar, she said, now I see why you might want to visit the stone that takes away magic rather urgently, Tsar, son of Encanzo. It is, as you say, an emergency, for unless your sprite touches the stone to remove the witch magic within the next 24 hours, I imagine the sprite will die. Sycorax was a noticing sort of person, and she certainly noticed the tears in Tsar's eyes when she said those words, and the shake of his head. No, whispered Tsar, no, he must not die. He will not. He must not. I will not let him. Don't worry, Squeezes, trust me. I won't let that happen. For Squeezes, cowering and quaking in the Queen's hands, and staring up at her stern, unrelenting profile, had let out a whimper as he heard these words. Sycorax sighed sympathetically. A queen of warriors must be merciful as well as strong, she said, and so I shall take you and your sprite to the stone, and I very much hope for both your sakes that it will not be too late. Sycorax handed the bundle containing Squeezes to her deputy, who held him out at arm's length, shaking, for he did not want to be holding a witch-poisoned sprite. But before I take you there, said Sycorax sweetly, I have a few questions to ask you. Uh-oh, whispered Caliburn. Be careful, be very careful, Tsar, of the questioning of queens. You mentioned that you saw a dead witch, said Queen Sycorax. That interests me extraordinarily, for according to legend, witches are hard to kill. So, who killed this witch? And with what? There was a silence. Standing some way behind Queen Sycorax, Wish was waving her arms about frantically to get Tsar's attention and staring at him in an agonised sort of way. Tsar could see the hilt of the enchanted sword poking out from beneath her cloak, and Wish was mouthing something that looked a bit like, I'm on your side. Was she really on his side, or wasn't she? Tsar didn't know. But in that moment, Tsar realised that just possibly Wish might have stolen the sword, not because she was a treacherously tricksy traitor of a warrior, but because she didn't want the sword to be captured as well as Tsar. I killed the witch, said Tsar eventually, with a bow and arrow. Really? Said Queen Sycorax, raising an eyebrow. For, by complete coincidence, only yesterday I lost a large ancient witch-killing sword from my dungeons. It disappeared, poof, just like that. And ever since, my household defenders have been turning the fort upside down looking for it. Do you know anything about that sword, Tsar, son of Encanzo? No, said Tsar. A large ancient sword with the words, once there were witches, but I killed them, written on the blade. I've never seen a sword like that in my life, said Tsar. And do you know where it is now, said Sycorax, disbelievingly. No, said Tsar. How could I, when I've never seen it in the first place? You lie, said Sycorax, swift as an adder. I'm not lying, protested Tsar. I am afraid that you are, said Queen Sycorax. I said that Queen Sycorax was a noticing sort of person. Her sharp, flinty eyes had spotted something sticking out of one of Tsar's pockets, a half-full bottle of Love Never Lies potion. I know you are lying, said Queen Sycorax, because that is one of your strange wizard medicines, which changes colour when a person lies. She pointed at the bottle, and the liquid inside was a swirl of darkest indigo. the deep purple that indicated that the person who was touching it was telling a lie. Bother it, thought Tsar. She's as bad as my father. That's the second time today I've been caught out by that beastly love potion. I really must remember not to carry one of the truth drugs around with me. It cramps my style. But how would a warrior queen know about Love Never Lies potion and what it did? Study your enemy, said Queen Sycorax, as if Tsar had spoken aloud. It is extremely important to study your enemy very carefully. I know a great deal about you wizards and your curses and your warped cunning and your trouble-making poisons, and this knowledge often comes in useful. Queen Sycorax reached forward, removed the bottle of Love Never Lies potion from Tsar's pocket and shook it, watching thoughtfully as the liquid turned back to pale red again. And the fact that you were lying tells me that you have seen my sword. You do know where it is, and if you wanted to, you could tell me its whereabouts right now. Search the wizard. Very reluctantly, the warrior guards searched Tsar, for they did not really want to go anywhere near a wizard with a witch stone, but they were far too frightened of Queen Sycorax to disobey her orders. They found plenty of interesting things in Tsar's pockets, curses and spells and potions and herbs of all sorts, but no sword. Said Queen Sycorax. I wonder what you've done with it. Where is my sword, Tsar, son of Incanzo? I refuse to answer, said Tsar, folding his arms. All right then, said Queen Sycorax calmly. I will make a bargain with you. I had intended to hold you for ransom. I was going to send a message to your father, saying that if he ever wanted to see his rude little burglar of a son alive again, he must give himself up to me. Taking away the magic of the great wizard Incanzo would be a blow to the wizards, would be a blow the wizards would find very hard to recover from. Tsar flinched in horror. But, mused Queen Sycorax, if witches have returned to the forest once more, I really am going to need that witch-killing sword. So, said Queen Sycorax briskly, I will be very reasonable. If you give me back my sword, I will take you and your sprite to the stone that takes away magic, and then I will not hold you to ransom for your father after all. I will let you and your sprites and your animals go free. How is that for an offer? Do you promise? Said Tsar. Of course I promise, snapped Queen Sycorax. Are you questioning the word of a queen? It was a tempting offer. Tsar considered it. He was trapped. He would never be able to overcome so many warriors who were holding him at once, and this would at least get Squeeze's cured and then he saw Wish's face again. Wish was making agonised eye movements towards the Love Never Lies potion in Queen Sycorax's hands. The liquid had turned so indigo that it was very nearly black. You lie, said Tsar, pointing at the Love Never Lies potion. You lie, and I refuse your offer. Queen Sycorax gave a start and looked down at the bottle. Dear, dear, she said good-humouredly, that was careless of me, and very clever of you, Tsar, son of Incanzo. I like an intelligent enemy. It keeps me on my toes. You're quite right. I am lying, Queen Sycorax admitted. I have every intention of holding you to ransom for your father after I've taken you to the stone that takes away magic, whatever you do or say. Wish was so horrified she could not help interrupting. But rule number 13, a warrior should never lie. Queen Sycorax looked at Wish as though she was a slug. Amendment to Rule 13. A queen can break the rules, said Queen Sycorax, in pursuit of a higher good. Then what, thought Wish, is the point of the rules in the first place? But she kept that thought to herself. Queen Sycorax put the Love Never Lies potion back in Tsar's pocket. You are a very disobedient boy, and you obviously have not been treated firmly enough, said Queen Sycorax. But I think you will find that I am very firm indeed. You need to be given a lesson, Tsar, son of Incanzo, and that is what prison is for. Tsar sighed. Why did everyone want to teach him a lesson? Ranta, his father, Caliburn, and now this horrible queen. It was very wearing. I shall lock you in my prison, said Queen Sycorax, and I will not take you or your sprite to the stone, she continued in a hard voice, until after you have told me where the sword is. Give the sprite back to the boy. With relief, the deputy handed Squeezes back to Czar. If you don't tell me where the sword is, you will have to watch your sprite dying in front of you, said Queen Sycorax. As soon as you tell me, I will take you and your sprite to the stone, and then I will hold you to ransom, and your father, if he is weak enough to love a rude, disobedient child like you, will come here to save you, and I will remove Incanzo's magic too. She smiled at Czar. It was a beautiful smile. Whenever she smiled at Wish, which wasn't very often, Wish's whole world lit up with sunshine, but Czar didn't appreciate it. You and your father and your sprites are all going to lose your magic, whatever happens, said Queen Sycorax, in that voice as gently soft as a poisoned arrow. But if you tell me where the sword is, you can at least save your sprite's life. The Queen continued, and you love your sprite, don't you? Love is always a weakness, so I know you will make the right decision. Czar was trapped. What could he do? Everything was getting out of hand. Squeezes might die, all through Czar's fault. His father might lose his magic, all through Czar's fault. Queen of evil, heart of ice, cowardly ironclad leader of the rabbit hearts, shouted Czar, beside himself with anger and fear. Queen Sycorax reddened with annoyance. Nothing much rattled her. She took threats, trickery, even violence in her stride. However, nobody had ever dared to speak to her with Czar's sheer disrespectful cheek before. The warriors secretly admired the bravery of this one small wizard, who was completely at the mercy of the most ruthless ruler in the forest, but was still throwing insults at her with total abandon. Take this uncivil little wizard and his sprites and his animals to cell number 445, snapped Queen Sycorax. Czar was putting on a brave and angry front, but inside he was feeling total despair and helplessness. He fought and bit and struggled, but he was hopelessly outnumbered, and the guards dragged Czar and the snowcats and the sprites away. Czar still cursing Queen Sycorax at the top of his voice. You're softer than bunny rabbits, you're weaker than water, you're fluffier than the fluffiest little baby dormouse, and my granny could beat you up with one hand tied behind her back. Ooh, so Czar and the sprites are off to the dungeon. What do we think of Wish's mother, Queen Sycorax? Well, we're going to find out on Monday what happens to Wish now that she's back with her mother. So have a good weekend. See you Monday.